You don't get through West Point unless you're a leader.
He notices when there's a problem. He notices if something's awry.
Pete embodies a lot of Jewish values, trying to make the world a better place.
He does things because they're the right thing to do.
Being Jewish in the Army in World War I and in World War II, and even afterwards, you were a minority among a group of people who did not know what Jewish was.
It's tough to be an Army officer. It's tough to be a career Army officer. But it's even tougher to be a Jewish Army officer.
He was a classmate of my husband at West Point, both very athletic. Peter is really a leader among leaders. He's the one who's particularly aware, particularly observant of others.
At West Point, the Jewish services in the old cadet chapel, which was about a mile from the barracks area, were on Sunday morning. Having a Sunday morning service in most Jewish communities is not a routine kind of thing. I began a campaign to work with the dean's office and the cadet chaplain's office to see if we could find a way to have Jewish services that were more meaningful to the cadets and were at a more convenient location and at an appropriate time. And it turned out to be a great idea, especially when the Jewish war veterans came with food, with the corned beef and the salami. We had crowds for supper, and the Jewish cadets got to know one another, and we created a community. I went to an alumni reunion at West Point. A classmate of mine was the superintendent, and when they played the marches where all the graduates march onto the parade field, one of the marches they played was Onward Christian Soldiers. And I went to my friend, and I said, Howie, there are lots of marches they can play. Onward Christian Soldiers is not for me. And they changed it. And thereafter, at all the alumni ceremonies, that was not one of the marches that they played.
It was very controversial whether to allow women to West Point, and Peter was very supportive.
We were asked to come to the chief's office to talk about that issue. The chief of staff was saying that there shouldn't be women at West Point. The military academy was created to create leaders for the combat arms and armed forces, and he expected us to ensure that that policy did not get changed. I talked about commissioning officers in the Signal Corps and Medical Corps, and so the argument that we were in our combat arms school really didn't hold water. And the chief of staff started picking up the pencils and throwing them one at a time at my boss, saying, you need to change that policy. You need to make sure that doesn't happen. And I sat there quietly, not saying anything. After almost 5 years in Europe, we were offered an assignment in Texas, and the kids said, we're not going to Texas. We've been to Texas. We were familiar with the California area, and having an opportunity to be assigned at the Presidio seemed like a good opportunity.
As a deputy commander, he was more like a chief of staff. He oversaw all of the directorates and departments we had.
The job was an interesting one. There was a lot going on. The weather was great. We lived 100 meters from 2 tennis courts.
One of the things I realized very quickly was he had no chairs in his office. He didn't particularly want to have people coming in for chats. That was part of the reason why he was able to get things done quickly and was able then to go out and play tennis at the end of the day.
Since I was used to being part of Jewish communities and helping organize them and generate some enthusiasm, we decided to build a sukkah.
It was very useful to have a Catholic and a Jew running the Presidio, because when we'd have Christmas, he made very sure that Hanukkah was well regarded.
When I got to the Presidio, there were a handful of people who had a Jewish war veterans post. And someone heard about me, and they invited me to attend a meeting, and so I did.
So we were delighted at the time to have someone of the caliber of Peter Gleichenhaus, active duty, Vietnam veteran.
I was asked by the Jewish war veterans many years ago to lead a group of veterans who were not Jewish on a tour of Israel. When we went to Nazareth, and when we went to Bethlehem, And when we went to the Sea of Galilee, the connection to Israel was significantly solidified.
He being a Jew and I being a Catholic, we saw both sides of the important historic aspects of that visit.
And then when we went to the Kotel, or we went to Yad Vashem, or other places that had a Jewish historical significance, every trip provided them with an opportunity to see Israel in all its fullness.
That was a very special part of our lives, just to be in that part of that group.
I ended up taking trips to Israel over a period of 10 years, and I still hear from a significant number of them as one of the most meaningful trips that they have made.
Our local Jewish community didn't really have all that much interaction with our veterans community, and we saw that it was kind of a glaring hole.
It's important that our veterans and our service members know that the Jewish community appreciates their sacrifice, appreciates the sacrifice of their families, and what they're doing for our country.
I was at a meeting with Doug Kahn, who is the executive director at the JCRC, and a number of members of the rabbinical community.
And each person had their own ideas about what the Veterans Committee for JCRC should do.
And they came around the table to me, and I said, this is all baloney. If you want to do something for veterans, you help them find jobs.
For us, it was a no-brainer to develop this initiative to facilitate relationships between the veterans community and the private sector.
And the fact that the JCRC was willing to take the initiative and to accept the role as sponsor, I think is admirable.
In many ways, he is like the JCRC in working behind the scenes to ensure values and ensure that things are carried out.
No task is too small for Pete. He's on the phone with the leaders of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce nationally. He's on the phone with the president of the Giants trying to get Hiring Our Heroes to work, but he's also the person that goes knocking on doors, passing out flyers, trying to spread the word about the job fair.
He always does it with such a smile and strong will, and it really comes through.
He's so skilled at pulling people together and fostering their interdependence and their mutual assistance. It's quite a beautiful thing to see and to be part of.
My dad is a morning person. Frequently, I would be up at 6 a.m. at the tennis court or basketball or racquetball or wherever it is that we're going, and we're back by mid-morning with the rest of the day. That's how he operated. And you get things done, you get them done quick, you come back and you find you have lots more time to do a whole bunch of things.
He always impressed upon us, if you are able to do something for your family, you do. If you can show up, you do.
I remember when we were little, he would take us out one-on-one. We'd get dressed up and we'd go out. And that was his way of telling us that we were special.
As a soldier, you know, my friends who aren't military would think, oh, you know, is your dad very tough and strong? He is, but he's also honest and humble.
Extreme patience and amiability, but absolutely fair and insisting that you are responsible and are responsible for your actions. And he will hold you to that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but the first thing I ever drove was a tank. Dad, it was a bring your daughter to work day, and he does things quietly. He does things that he believes in because he believes in it. It's the right thing to do, and he moves forward with it.
One of his outstanding skills is in community building.
He has strong relationships with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the San Francisco Giants, and the Golden State Warriors.
You don't do it for the money, you do it for service.
Everyone's first impression is this terrific big smile. You know, he is just such a warm, welcoming fellow.
I couldn't think of another person more deserving of the award.
He's a doer, and he's been great.
We need more Pete Gleichenhauses in this world.